Breaking news. The Pittsburgh Steelers' entire season may come down to one crucial factor. A single X factor that could decide whether this team becomes a true Super Bowl contender in 2025 or whether their dreams fall apart before they even begin. With big names like Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, and Jalen Ramsey now in the mix, expectations are sky high in Pittsburgh. But here's the hard truth. If the Steelers don't get this one thing right, the season could collapse, and the chase for that historic 7th Lombardi trophy could slip right through their fingers. Warning before we dive into the latest update. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and tap the bell icon so you never miss the breaking news and analysis on your Pittsburgh Steelers. Now let's get straight into it. And that critical piece, the one thing that could make or break the Steelers in 2025, is the offensive line. For years now, this unit has been the stumbling block, holding back both the run game and the passing attack. And in Arthur Smith's offensive system, everything begins up front. Establishing the run, setting up play action, creating rhythm on early downs. It all depends on how well this line performs. The truth is painful, but Steelers Nation already knows it. Until this offensive line proves it can dominate, the ceiling for this team will always be limited. For years now, the offensive line has been the roadblock standing in the Steelers' way. That's why we've seen the same story play out again and again. 9 or 10 wins, maybe slipping into the playoffs, only to be shown the door in the very first round. They look competitive enough to fight for a spot, but never dangerous enough to scare the real contenders. And let's be honest, if the line crumbles again this season, history will repeat itself. It won't matter that Aaron Rodgers is under center. It won't matter that DK Metcalf is running routes or that Jalen Ramsey is locking down receivers. Without protection up front, the offense stalls, and when the offense stalls, the entire team's ceiling crashes down. But here's the other side of it. If this group finds its rhythm, everything changes. Suddenly, Pittsburgh isn't just fighting for a wild card. They're capable of winning the division. Suddenly, the Steelers aren't one and done in January. They're a team that can string together playoff wins and actually threaten to lift the Lombardi trophy. And the talent is undeniable. Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu, first-round bookends at tackle. Zach Frazier, already proving himself as one of the best young centers in football. Isaac Sumalo, the steady veteran at guard. Even Mason McCormick, last year's mid-round pick, has the kind of physical profile this team believes can grow into something special. On paper, this could be a top 10 offensive line in the entire league. But the paper doesn't win games. The real test is development, and that falls squarely on offensive line coach Pat Meyer. With all this raw talent and high draft capital, the pressure has never been higher. If he can mold this group into a cohesive, dominant unit, the Steelers' entire future looks different. If not, the same old story will play out. Another season capped with frustration. And this is where the real concern starts to pile up. Pat Meyer's track record with developing offensive linemen hasn't exactly inspired confidence. But he's not the only question mark hanging over this group. Take Broderick Jones, for example. The Steelers are sliding him back to his natural spot at left tackle, the same position he dominated in high school and at Georgia. But after struggling badly at right tackle during his first 2 years in Pittsburgh, the move feels like a gamble. He's looked more comfortable on the left side so far in camp and preseason. But the real test will come when defenses start throwing exotic stunts and pressure packages his way in regular season action. Until then, his consistency remains a mystery. Then there's Isaac Sumalo. When healthy, he's as steady as they come, but age and durability are concerns. He's already battled injuries early in camp, and the question is whether his body can hold up across a grueling 17-game slate. At center, Zach Frazier looks like a star in the making. His blocking ability is top tier, but he's still struggling with something as basic as snapping the ball. Low snaps became an issue with multiple quarterbacks, and while some chemistry improved late last year, the problem has carried over into practices with Aaron Rodgers and the rest of the quarterback room. One bad snap at the wrong moment can decide a season, and that's something the Steelers simply cannot afford. Mason McCormick is another wild card. Thrown into the fire earlier than expected after James Daniels went down last year, he had to adjust not only to a new position, but also to the massive jump in competition from South Dakota State to the NFL. That inexperience showed, and while his physical tools are intriguing, he remains unproven heading into this season. And finally, Troy Fautanu. On the field, his talent is undeniable, exactly why Pittsburgh drafted him. But durability is the elephant in the room. Multiple teams passed on him in the draft due to concerns about his knee, and the Steelers are betting he can stay on the field long-term. That's a risk, and one that could swing the entire future of this offensive line. On film, Troy Fautanu looks every bit like a top 10 talent. His tape at Washington was outstanding, and even in the brief flashes we've seen with the Steelers, he's shown why the front office believed in him. But the lingering question remains. Can that knee hold up through the grind of a full NFL season? If it can, he could be a cornerstone piece. If it can't, the ripple effect on this offensive line could be devastating. And that's the real danger here, because beyond the starters, the depth simply isn't there. Last season, Pittsburgh had the luxury of plugging in players like Broderick Jones and Mason McCormick when injuries hit. Even with multiple starters going down, the line managed to patch things together. But this year, that safety net doesn't exist. Yes, Spencer Anderson offers some versatility at guard. Calvin Anderson could be serviceable once healthy, and Andrew Peat provides veteran insurance. But none of them are true starting caliber options over a long stretch. If injuries pile up again the way they did in 2024, this line could easily regress and drag the entire offense with it. The preseason already gave us a glimpse of how fragile this situation is. 1 or 2 injuries, and suddenly Pittsburgh goes from potential top 10 line to bottom-tier liability. That kind of drop-off can derail a season, no matter how much star power surrounds the roster. And that brings us to the heart of the matter, the Steelers' Super Bowl formula. Because if this offensive line holds together, and if the key pieces stay healthy, Pittsburgh actually has a pathway to real contention. And at the center of that formula, the man who could define this season more than anyone else is Aaron Rodgers. If the offensive line holds up, 2 more dominoes have to fall for the Steelers to truly chase a championship. The run game must break out, and Aaron Rodgers has to deliver a comeback season worthy of his name. Both are non-negotiable. Without them, Pittsburgh won't survive showdowns against heavyweights like Kansas City, Buffalo, or Baltimore. The good news? The run game might be stronger than people realize. A lot of negativity has surrounded it this preseason. Criticism from training camp, shaky results in exhibition games. But that picture doesn't tell the whole story. At the center of it all is Jaylen Warren, one of the most underrated running backs in the NFL. Warren thrives where it matters most, in live action. What looks like a simple tackle in practice often turns into a missed tackle in games because of his rare ability to stay upright through first contact. Time and again over his young career, he's proven to be one of the league's most efficient backs, consistently ranking among the top 10 in advanced efficiency metrics. That's why the Steelers were comfortable moving on from Najee Harris and handing Warren the reins as their RB1. And Pittsburgh has another weapon that makes the ground attack even more dangerous, Darnell Washington. At 6 feet 7 inches and nearly 300 pounds, he's more like a 6th offensive lineman than a tight end. When the Steelers deploy heavy 13 personnel packages, Washington becomes a nightmare for opposing defenses, an extra wall in the trenches that can turn short yardage battles into explosive plays. If this ground game comes alive, it won't just balance the offense. It will unlock everything else the Steelers want to do: play action, tempo, and most importantly, it will take pressure off Aaron Rodgers. With Darnell Washington acting like a 6th lineman, the Steelers' run game has a real chance to bully defenses at the line of scrimmage. His size and blocking ability open lanes not just for Jaylen Warren, but also for younger backs like Caleb Johnson and Kenneth Gainwell. This is where Pittsburgh can flip the script by leaning into power football and creating mismatches that wear down opponents. Jaylen Warren gives this ground attack a strong foundation, but the X factor could be rookie Caleb Johnson. At Iowa, he flashed explosive ability, and if he can carry that over into his first season in the NFL, it changes everything. Imagine a rotation where Warren handles the tough, late-down work while Johnson bursts through defenses on early downs. That combination has the potential to become one of the most dynamic backfield duos in the league. And then, of course, comes the centerpiece of the offense, Aaron Rodgers. If the run game sets the stage, Rodgers must deliver the performance. The last 3 years have been turbulent. First the broken thumb in 2022, then the Achilles tear in 2023, followed by chaos with the Jets in 2024. But none of those problems exist in Pittsburgh. Here, Rodgers has stability. He has a proven play caller in Arthur Smith, not the dysfunction he left behind in New York. He's healthy. He's surrounded by talent. And his arm talent hasn't disappeared. If the Steelers can protect him and establish the run, Rodgers still has the tools to carve up defenses, protect the football at an elite level, and re-establish himself as a top quarterback in this league. This season is his chance, not just to bounce back, but to remind the football world that Aaron Rodgers can still tilt the balance of power in the NFL. Even at 41, the potential is still there for Aaron Rodgers to lead this team. And what makes that possible is the defense behind him. If Pittsburgh can keep its stars, T.J. Watt and Jalen Ramsey, healthy, this defense has the depth and the firepower to be the best in the NFL. Over the last half-decade, no defense has allowed fewer 20-point games, and that ability to keep opponents in check remains the heartbeat of the Steelers' identity. That's what lowers the pressure on the offense. Rodgers doesn't need to be MVP level every week. The formula is clear. The offensive line must rise, the run game has to punch holes, and Rodgers needs to protect the football and make the throws when it matters most. If all three hit, this team can go toe-to-toe with anybody in the league. And the truth is, it's all possible. The young offensive line has the raw talent to grow into something special. Jaylen Warren brings a steady, efficient presence in the backfield, while Darnell Washington turns early downs into a physical chess match. And Rodgers, even now, still owns the arm talent and command to keep this offense moving forward. Everything is in front of the Steelers in 2025. The margin for error is slim, and the season will demand health, consistency, and a little luck. But for the first time in years, Pittsburgh enters the season not just with pride, but with genuine hope. And that hope may be the spark that carries the black and gold on a real championship run.